Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing the extra time match review for Chelsea 1, Everton nil. Pretty disappointing afternoon in West London, which saw the host take away all 3 points in the end, but a pretty resilient second half display from Everton. Saw us nearly getting back into it, but we'll get into that later in the video. We'll start with my thoughts on the starting 11. And it was pretty much what I expected. Those that watched the preview, the starting 11 preview, it was pretty much what I predicted. The only difference being Jack Harrison keeping his place instead of Dwight McNeil. Michael Keane coming out of the team was obviously a positive. It arguably cost us against Manchester City, and it was good to see Jake O'Brien and Jared Branthwaite given their first chance as a partnership in the absence of James Tarkowski. Obviously, if Jared Branthwaite was to stay beyond the summer, it would be a partnership that we would see probably a lot more under David Moyes next season. So it was good to get a first taste of that, and obviously good to see Jake O'Brien get his first chance at centre back, his natural position in an Everton shirt. But we'll go into the first half now, and it was kind of lackluster. I felt like we were miles off it. We just didn't really get going at all. It was definitely felt like a team that was on the beach versus a Champions League chaser. That was what the early exchanges definitely felt like. The goal, obviously coming early in that second half, I think within the sort of first 20, 30 minutes, obviously came from a sloppy Beto touch, which gifted Nicholas Jackson a free shot on the edge of the box. He finished very well past Jordan Pickford. There was nothing Jordan Pickford could do. Listen, the goal, I think even David Moyes has addressed it in his post-match interview. Beto just has to do better. He has to shield the ball better, and he has to just make sure that the ball just doesn't bounce off him like a trampoline. A lot of people have been saying obviously Beto's first touch is awful and his second touch seems to be a tackle. I think we definitely got an example of that on Saturday against Chelsea, but as I said before, and even David Moyes has admitted that it was sloppy and it was really avoidable, that first goal in my opinion, giving Nicholas Jackson his first goal I think since the start of January. So it shows how much Chelsea have been struggling to score goals, and I felt like we just gifted him that one. And obviously going one behind against a team that is chasing Champions League in the first half is never ideal because you've always got an uphill battle then to try and get back into the game. And yeah, as I said before, in that first half, we were miles off it and it did feel very lackluster. We just didn't get going and we struggled really to create anything in that first half. I think our first chance came in first half stoppage time. Abdoulaye Doucouré headed well wide from a cross, and that kind of rounded off a pretty poor first half. Not a lot of chance creation, pretty lackluster. So at half time, I'm thinking we massively have to up our intensity levels. We massively have to up our game if we're going to get anything from this. But it's still there for the taking, which is mad. A team that is fighting at the top end of the league should have finished us off massively in that first half. They could have put three or four past us. So I think to go in at half time only 1-0 down, I think was relatively positive and gave us a decent footing in the second half to try and go and maybe claw it back and get at least a point. But the biggest talking point of half time was Iliman Ndiaye coming off for Carlos Alcaraz. I said in my player ratings video that I didn't think Iliman Ndiaye had his best game in an Everton shirt. He struggled to create anything. He still looks a little bit off that full match sharpness, which we've seen from him in an Everton shirt. So Carlos Alcaraz came on, and it was actually a little bit of a turning point in my opinion. We came out with a lot more intensity. We were creating a lot more chances, and I feel like Alcaraz was a key catalyst in that. I think he massively changed the game for us. In the first half, the first big chance in that second half for us coming from Beto, a decent pass by Jack Harrison to find him, and Beto was denied well by Sanchez. Robert Sanchez probably having his best game in a Chelsea shirt. Despite being absolutely horrendous for the rest of the season. So that feels like a very, very Everton thing to happen to us. But as I said before, it was a decent save from Carlos Sanchez, from Robert Sanchez, who got down well to deny Beto. And that was kind of Beto's last action. I think he was taken off straight after that, along with Jack Harrison. Obviously, Dwight McNeil coming onto the field of play, Yusuf Chermiti coming on. And I feel like them two also changed the dynamic a little bit for us. A big chance for Dwight McNeil, a volley in the box, which again was saved so well by Sanchez, which again just shows how Everton of an afternoon it was that Sanchez had probably his best game in a Chelsea shirt. It was just very Everton that. But again, Chelsea really took their foot off the gas in that second half and allowed us a lot more chances. So coupling that with our added intensity, I feel like it gave us a real fighting shot in the last 20 minutes or so. And we did really, really try. We did try to create a lot of chances going forward with a lot more intensity, a lot more urgency. But ultimately it was just a little bit too much for us. Chelsea were able to bring on the likes of Reece James just to shore it up a little bit more. It was a much improved second half, but as I said before, it was just a little bit too much for us. The game got away from us, and Chelsea ended up being victorious, taking away all 3 points in a 1-0 victory. Listen, I think my honest verdict, I think the first half wasn't good enough, but I think the reaction was there. Similar to the Manchester City game, we've shown that we can go toe to toe with top teams for large spells of games. You look at the Manchester City game, it took them around 85 minutes to get on the score sheet there. Nico O'Reilly obviously tapping in later on in that game. And then obviously, if you're looking at the second half against Chelsea, for example, we've gone toe to toe with them for an entire half, keeping them out and also creating a lot of chances of our own. It shows that we can go toe to toe with these Champions League chasing teams for large spells of games. You look at Nottingham Forest a few weeks ago as well. Obviously, FA Cup semi-finalist, chasing Champions League. We're able to beat them on their own turf. I think David Moyes has instilled this attitude that we can play against these teams and really ruffle a few feathers with the big boys. And obviously, we're not getting the results at the moment, but we are being in games for large spells of it. So I think it's definitely positive. And obviously, as I said before, ultimately a little bit too much for us on Saturday, but there was spells of the game where we can take a lot of positives from, and look to take that positivity into next season and build on those performances. But just before we wrap up, I'll bring up my standout performances. And for me, it's between two. I said in my player ratings video, I couldn't really split these two for man of the match, so I think they'll share it. For me, it was Jordan Pickford and Jared Branthwaite. I gave them both an 8 in my player ratings video. I thought they were both top in defence and really limited Chelsea, obviously, to that one goal. Really shored us up in that second half. There was a few decent saves from Jordan Pickford to deny Noni Madueke, and also Jared Branthwaite was just rock solid in all his blocks, his interceptions, his tackles, just showing what a Rolls Royce of a defender he is. And we're so lucky to have a defender like that in our midst, because he is very, very good week in, week out. And he's shown why there's probably going to be a lot of top teams sniffing around him in the summer. But that is all for my extra time match review of Chelsea 1, Everton nil. Everton nil. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about how we played. Were you happy with the sort of starting 11 selection? Do you think Moyes got the substitutions right? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. And obviously on to Ipswich on Saturday in the penultimate game at Goodison Park. But that is all from me today. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.